with the Bad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1932 action/horror movie, The Most Dangerous Game.
If he says the thing is good, it is good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you respect my opinion. I am reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rated Rotten Tomatoes. I will give them all a score of 1 to 10. I started in the 1920 silent movie era. I made my way to 1953, and then another movie matching my criteria ended up in 1932 again. So I'm back there for one more movie. In 1932, The Most Dangerous Game. This movie has 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 73% fresh rating from the audience, which I would say is on the much lower scale of what we have seen before. This movie stars Joel McCrea as Bob Rainsford, Faye Ray as Eva, Leslie Banks as Count Zaroff. Now, John McCrea was also in Sullivan's Travels, which I reviewed before, and he is a fantastic actor, so he's also really good in this movie. Now, when this movie starts off, we have John McCrea, who is Bob Rainsford. He is on a boat. He is a famous big game hunter. He's known throughout the world as being one of the best hunters in the world, and he's having a conversation with these people on the boat about what he does. He's talking about how there's two types of people in the world. There's the hunter and the hunted, and he'll never need to know what it's like to be the hunted because he is a hunter. Now, this, of course, is foreshadowing. There's really no other reason for him to say this line or for him to talk about this unless it's some kind of foreshadowing. So this is foreshadowing for later.
This world's divided into two kinds of people, the hunter and the hunted. Luckily, I'm a hunter. Nothing can ever change that.
Then they realize that the markers on the map don't match the markers in the water, and everyone in the boat is afraid that they are going the wrong way and that there's going to be catastrophe, but they decide to keep going anyway.
The chart. The charts are never up to date in this part of the Pacific. You know that.
I know, sir, but doesn't Barranca Island mean anything to you?
And their boat runs aground. Water ends up getting inside the boat. It mixes with the heaters, and the boat explodes in fantastic fashion, and there's explosion everywhere, and there's bodies everywhere.
If the water ever hits those hot boilers.
And there's a couple of people who live along with Bob, but they end up getting eaten by a shark, and Bob is the only survivor. He ends up finding his way to a big castle of sorts, and he knocks on the castle, and this big guy named Ivan or Igor or something answers the door, and he goes inside and he says, can you help me? My boat ran aground and all my friends died.
I'm not trying to break in, but I've been in a wreck. Our yacht just sunk with all hands. I got ashore and found your place here by accident.
I just need some help. And this guy doesn't respond to him in any way. He doesn't say anything. But then down this spirally staircase like you would in a horror movie comes Count Zaroff, and he introduces himself, and he says that there's other people who were there from the last boat explosion, from the last boat that had some trouble, and Bob's like, wow, there was another boat that had trouble? What a coincidence that is. I can't believe that. So Count Zaroff goes down, and he introduces Bob to the other two survivors from the other boat. Now, one of them is Eva, and one of them is Eva's brother.
How are you, old chap? Pretty well shaken up, I guess, huh?
Coming out of it now, thanks.
We know just how it feels. Don't we, Eve?
Indeed we do.
Eva's brother is basically, he's the 1932 pigeonholed alcoholic, because in the 1930s and 40s, if you watch any of my reviews from that era, there's always someone in the movie that's an alcoholic. Now, he's supposed to be the comedy relief in the movie, so he has like all the funny lines, the lines that are meant to be funny, but they're supposed to be even more funny because he's drunk. Alcoholism is hilarious, guys, especially in horror movies. Alcoholism is just funny. So he's the brother, and he is just raves and rants about Count Zaroff, how he's this great person. Now, Count Zaroff says that he is also a hunter, and he knows right away who Bob is because Bob is a famous hunter. He's known all around. He knows of his deeds and his exploits and his mass game that he's hunted. And Zaroff says, you know, I've hunted everything on this island, and I just ran out of things that are hard for me to hunt. Everything is just so easy. I have such an easy time that it's not really entertaining to me anymore. So I found the most dangerous game to hunt, and that's all I hunt now. And Bob's trying to trying to think to himself, I wonder what he's talking about. Could it be a tiger? Could it be this? Could it be that? But Count Zaroff's not saying anything.
Here.
I'll tell you. You will be amused, I know. I have done a rare thing. I have invented a new sensation.
He's not speaking up. And then the alcoholic brother talks about how they're not even allowed to see the trophy room. Only the people who go out on these hunts can see the trophy room. It's like this special thing, and only special people can know what he's hunting. And it's this guarded secret that no one wants to talk about. And then Eva kind of takes Bob aside and she says, I think there's some foul play afoot here, because we were with another group of people. They went hunting with Zaroff and they never returned. Where did all these people go? And I think he is sending boats out. And I think that the boat that he has is fine. He told them that the only boat that he has was being worked on, that it didn't work. But she thinks otherwise. She thinks that it's fine.
Well, perhaps he enjoys the company of two very charming people.
Two, maybe. There were 4 of us a week ago. The other 2 have disappeared.
So they all go to bed, and then the next morning, Eva's brother is missing, the alcoholic. They can't find him anywhere. So Bob and Eva decide that they're going to go into this trophy room that no one's allowed to go into, and they're going to look for her brother. So the door is open, they end up going inside, and when they go inside, they see the horror of where you would normally see mounted heads of animals in a trophy room. They see mounted heads of people, at least one head of a person. So, it starts to sink in that he's probably hunting people. So they hear Zaroff coming into the room. Eva approaches him and yells, "You killed my brother. Where's my brother? You killed him. You're terrible." And then Zaroff then explains to them that yes, he does hunt people, that he's probably going to hunt someone later on in the day, but he doesn't want to hunt Bob because he wants Bob to hunt with him. He wants Bob to be his hunting partner. Since they're both great hunters, he wants to hunt with the best. Of course, Bob refuses to do this because he says this is murder. Like, I'm not going to murder a person. I mean, it's perfectly fine with murdering an animal, but he's not going to murder a person because that's barbaric. I'm not going to do it. So Zaroff is very disappointed by this. He is, he was hoping that he was going to be able to hunt with his idol. So he says, well, if I can't hunt with you, then I'm going to hunt you.
I'm going to be hunted.
No, Miss Trowbridge. Outdoor chess. His brain against mine. His woodcraft against mine.
So he decides he's going to hunt Bob. This is like the main drive of the movie. This is where all the tenseness of the movie comes in. This is where the movie is driven from. Now he's going to be hunting Bob. So Eva says that she wants to accompany Bob in this hunt. Zaroff assures Bob that he is not going to hunt Eva, that he doesn't hunt women, but that if he ends up killing Bob, that he will be able to do with what he wants with Eva. Eva will be like his trophy. Eva will be the spoils. To the winner goes the spoils, and Eva is the spoils, basically. So how this works is Bob gives them, or not Bob, Zaroff gives them a bit of a head start, and he starts hunting them at midnight. And then once dawn happens, once the sun comes up, if they survive, then they get to leave the island, they get to live. But no one's ever survived until the sun comes up. So he doesn't believe that's going to happen. So Bob, of course, his idea basically is just to, since he has this extra time, he's just going to walk, and he's just going to keep running and walking, and he's going to get enough distance between him and Zaroff to where Zaroff is not able to make up the distance. But he soon realized that the island is really small, that after he's walked 3.5 hours, that's the whole length of the island. And that's why Zaroff is so good at hunting, because the island is so small that there's no way that he can not find him. So they decide that they're not going to get away by just merely trying to outdistance Zaroff. So their plan is to create some kind of trap. So the first thing they do is they see this big tree, and it's held together pretty shoddily. So he comes up with this idea to where he can have a trip wire where Zaroff trips a wire, and then this big tree comes down on Zaroff and crushes him. So he decides to do this. He gets the trap all set up. They hide kind of in the background, and when Zaroff comes to the trap, he notices right away that this is a trap. And he says, like, oh, good, nice try, but you're going to have to do better than that.
See?
If that supporting branch were cut away, this fallen tree would make a perfect melee deadfall.
A melee deadfall? What's that?
A man-killing contraption the natives use.
I've hunted big game that where I've done this kind of trap before, and then he says, you know what, I'm not going to use this bow and arrow anymore, I'm going to go get my gun. So then he he knows where they are, they're right there. He tries to shoot them with the bow and arrow, but he misses, and he says, instead of, you know, this is too easy, I'm going to give you guys some more time, I'm going to go back and get my gun. So when he goes back to get his gun, it buys Bob and Eva a little bit more time. They find this ledge where there's kind of two pieces of land, and then there's just open space in between it with a really big ditch, like a Grand Canyon type thing, but not closer than that. And their plan is to fill the gap of this ditch with a bunch of shrubbery and weeds, and Zaroff is not going to see it, and he's going to run after them, and he's going to fall down, and he's going to die. So they end up setting this up. It takes a while. They set this up with the leaves. They hide on the other side, and then he runs, and he almost falls into this hole, but he realizes what he's doing, and he backs out of it, and he doesn't fall into it.
When Mr. Zarzoff falls down there, he'll be all through hunting. Quick, gather some leaves and grass. I'll cut some branches.
Well, now Bob and Eva are in a bit of a situation here where they don't have that much distance away from Zaroff, and they really don't know where they're going, or they don't know what to do. Now they come up to this like swamp area. Now the swamp area is where a lot of the people who Zaroff has killed, he killed them in the swamp, because it's hard to walk in the swamp. There's a lot of haze and fog. I mean, in the movie you can barely even see what's going on. There's so much haze and fog in the swamp. And Zaroff says, well, you guys might think you have me beat because you're in a swamp and I can't see you and you're hard to see, but I'm going to bring my dogs in. And he blows a whistle, and like 20 dogs, like 20 pit bull or cane corsos come out, and they just chase after Bob and Eva. And Bob and Eva are able to, get away from them by climbing high where they can't reach them, or by tricking them off a ledge or something. And they're able to get away from a lot of the dogs. They get to a waterfall where they're kind of trapped. They either have to run off the waterfall, or they have to let the dogs kill them. So basically, one of the dogs attacks Bob, and he falls into the waterfall, and it's believed that Bob is dead. Zaroff celebrates, and he thinks that he's done a really good job here, that he beat the master hunter. He takes Eva as his trophy, and he goes back to his castle. Well, the next day, while Zaroff is playing the piano, the door behind him you see opens, and through the door comes Bob.
My dear Rainsford, I congratulate you.
Bob is now alive, and Zaroff turns around and he sees Bob, and he says, wow, congratulations, you're the first person to ever beat me. Now you and Eva can go, you can be on your way. But at the same time, he's reaching for a gun behind him, so he's clearly that he's going to shoot Bob and not let him get away. So when this happens, Bob attacks Zaroff. They struggle with each other, they fight. Bob ends up getting the upper hand, and he stabs Zaroff in the back. But this doesn't kill Zaroff. Eva and Bob end up getting in a boat, and they drive away. Zaroff tries to kill with his last breath and his last action. He tries to kill them with a bow and arrow, but he slumps over and he dies. and that's the entire movie. So what did I think of the movie? I thought this movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's a 60-minute movie. Movies from the 1920s and 1930s, the ones that I reviewed before, were not that long. They were around the same length. I had forgotten how short these movies are, and I thought, well, this amount of time, there's really probably not a lot that's going to happen. I don't know what kind of a story they're going to be able to tell, because they only have, it's like, honestly, it's like 62 minutes. It's an hour and 2-minute movie. But there's just no fluff in this movie. It's really good. The action is really well paced. It goes really quickly. This is clearly, this plot has been used in other mediums and other things, because I know for a fact this was an episode of Gilligan's Island, because as soon as I saw what was going on and I realized what the big game was and what they were doing, I said, wow, some guy did that to Gilligan. He tried to kill him in an episode the same way in Gilligan's Island, and it ended up the same way where Gilligan lived. It's neat when I get to harken back to those things and remember, oh yeah, I remember this from something else. But the acting is quite good here. Count Zaroff, Leslie Banks. He was also in Henry V. He was the guy in Henry who kind of in the middle, after all the action, he is the guy who is on stage speaking about what's going to happen next. And Joel McCrea is also very good. I mean, he was really good in Sullivan's Travel. He's really good here also. He doesn't have as much acting, as much to do with his acting that he did. I feel like he did in Sullivan's Travels. It's a different role for him here, but it's a really good role. I'm not usually a horror movie fan, but these older horror movies seem to be very good, because they're not just stupid gore, or they're not found footage, which for a long time that's what horror movies were. But these movies are quite good. There's, I mean, it really paints a tense scene where you're kind of on the edge of your seat, especially at the end of the movie. There was no, I mean, I had no idea if Joel McCrea, if Bob was actually going to live or not. And at the end of the movie, where he gets knocked off the waterfall, a part of me felt like he actually didn't die there, but who knows? Like, there was no evidence either way to me that he was going to live or die, so I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. From basically the beginning of the hunt to the end, I thought it was really good. The traps that he set up, I thought were kind of flimsy. I mean, the second trap for sure is not a trap you necessarily have to be a big game hunter to set up. I expected someone who was like a seasoned hunter would have more to do than just lay leaves over an empty trench for the guy to fall into. And at the end of the movie, he ends up getting chased up a tree by a bunch of dogs, and he says, oh, now I know what it's like, the animals that I hunt. And I said, yes, you do. I mean, live how you want to live, do what you want to do. I, for one, am a huge lover of animals. My wife is a veterinarian. I used to work at a veterinary hospital. I could never even harm any animal at all. So I'm not into the hunting thing. Not a huge fan of seeing animals die. In this movie, a lot of King Corsos or pit bulls die. I'm not sure which breed it was. I have a pit bull myself. You probably see him all the time on camera. So it's hard watching like those kind of scenes, especially the way they depict these dogs in the movie. These aren't the way these dogs are, but they're always depicted this type of way in movies, and it gives them a really bad name. But I mean, what are you going to do? That's just how horror movies were back then. I mean, there were other animals in horror movies too that are given this same type of personality, and you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, the movie is only 62 minutes long. I could have used it. I could have liked it to be a little bit longer. Now this is basically the same cast. I think the same director, the same film crew that filmed King Kong back then. And King Kong was a very big, famous movie. It revolutionized a lot of things with movies. And they basically filmed this at the same time that they were filming King Kong. A lot of the scenes, the swamp scene is from King Kong. The scene where they're walking along this big tree trunk is also from King Kong. So, you know, there's a lot. I mean, this movie, the fact that they were able to do King Kong and this movie, both of which are really held in high regard, is amazing. They did them at the same exact time. I, for one, have never heard of this movie before until I just watched it. Like I said, I'm I'm aware of the concept of hunting people. That I've seen a movie with that like that before. I've seen the Gilligan's Island episode like that before. I just never knew that it was actually dedicated to a movie back in the day, and that it was originally a short story. But I thought the movie was good, and at 62 minutes, if you have 62 minutes to just sit down and watch a well-paced movie that's pretty well acted. Now, obviously, the film quality is not good. This movie has a lot of imperfections in it. That's to be expected during a 1932 movie. The swamp scenes are especially hard to see. I don't know if that is just the copy that I watched, or because they were trying to do that because they are supposed to be hard to see in the fog. But it was a little bit annoying to me that there was action going on that I couldn't tell what was happening. And as an audience member, I feel like I should at least be able to tell what's going on, because it's important scenes happening where I don't know what's going on because I can't see through the fog. I'm sure they dealt with these issues later on. I mean, I don't know how far into the 30s or 40s that they finally perfected this. But other than that, it's a really clean movie. It's a really good movie. It's a nice watch, and I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.